Hello, not doing a review today. Instead, I have some hints and tips for you to get the most out of your system, get it sounding better without spending, in some cases, any money, in other cases, without spending very much money at all. So we'll just fire straight into it with number one, which is speaker placement. Now, age-old one, you want to go for that equilateral triangle. So you want the distance between the left speaker and the right speaker to be the same as the distance between the speakers and you. That's fairly easy to achieve. Just takes a little bit of muddling about. Speak to your partner and see where they're happy for things to go and work around things that way. With the speakers, you don't want them to be too close to the back wall because then the bass gets a bit sort of sloppy and muddy sounding, but not too far out either. So you toy about with that, with how far in or how far out you want them to be. And also the height of the speakers. I spoke about this in the last video I did. You want the tweeters to be at ear height when you're in your regular listening position. So that will dictate the size of the stands that you need, or if you need some of those little extra feet that I reviewed in the last video. And that's pretty much it for speaker placement. The second point I had was about cables and keeping all your cables as short as possible. So be it your speaker cables, your RCA cables, your 5-pin DIN cables, optical cable, whatever cable it is, the shorter you make that, the less distance the signal has to go from to get to the speaker eventually, and thus to your ears. So less distortion that way. The third point was isolation. So back to our previous video, under your sources, so under your CD player, under your turntable especially, under your amplifier, under your speakers. And we've gone over that in the previous video, but it stops the traffic noise and vibrations from outside getting into your system and causing issues in the final sound that you hear. So quite important, quite cheap, quite easy to do. The next one I have on my list here is about where you plug things in. Now, I would suggest that if you can possibly do it, you plug your amplifier directly into the wall, and then your sources, so your turntable, your streamer, your CD player, whatever you've got, you can put them on the multi-plug adapter and put them in a different socket from the amp one. And that just rules out chances of crosstalk, which again can interfere with the sound. Quite a simple one there. The next one I have down is soft furnishings and how to use them to get better sound. Essentially, empty rooms are quite harsh on sound because they cause a lot of reflections. If you've got a room rather, with a wooden floor, very little furnishings in it, 4 walls obviously, and a ceiling, you've got 6 areas, 1, 2, 3, 4 walls, ceiling, floor, that sound bounces off and reflects and causes all sorts of issues with the quality of your sound. So if you have a wooden floor and it's not carpeted, putting a carpet down is a stretch because you probably like your wooden floor, but get some rugs, put some rugs down, and that just helps dampen those reflections. Also in your room, if you're listening to your music, close the doors when you're listening to it. It stops the music escaping from, in my lounge I've got 2 doors and in this rectangular room here, and it just stops this sound escaping so much from those 2 areas. Curtains, have them. If you don't have them over your windows. Some people go as far as hanging curtains on areas where they don't have windows to stop the sound reflections. I would not go that far, and I think you would have to discuss that quite seriously with your wife or partner or husband or whoever before you went ahead and did that. But soft furnishings can help, and strategically placing them certainly helps. Put a couch between your speakers, for example. Bookcases are good as well. If you put a bookcase against a wall that the speakers are pointed at, then that can help. And you get little sound diffusers that can sit in the shelves of that bookcases, and they'll help as well. I'm not talking about acoustic paneling or sound dampening paneling or anything like that, because that's a lot of money and it's a big thing to take on. And the next point, so this will be point number 6 now, is turntable management. Very simple, very quick one. get yourself a stylus brush if you don't have one, get yourself a record brush if you don't have one. Every time you play a side of a record, clean that record side first and clean your stylus. When you turn it over, clean them both again. Do that every time. You'll drastically reduce the amount of hiss and crackle that you get from your turntable. Point number 7 I've got written down is, so this is one that I've had issues with recently and I'm currently in the process of sorting out, is to have the rear of your system easily accessible and not hard up against anything like a wall or a couch or anything like that. Mine currently is quite close to the couch. And when people sit down on the couch, me included, but also my son, he tends to sit with a bit of thud, and that can nudge things, nudges the couch into the connections, and then you start getting static and hiss going on through your speakers, and then sorting that out is difficult because they're not easily accessible. So try and get your things in a cabinet of some description and have it with enough gap for you to get in behind, either between it and the couch in my case, or between it and the wall in other cases. Quite an important one, as I'm discovering to my cost at the moment. Okay, number 8, I've got cable and connection upgrades. And I'm not talking about the weird and wacky world of £20,000 audio power cables and thousands of pounds on speaker cables or anything like that. I'm talking about if you got your system up and running using cheap and cheerful connectors and cables that work, then that's great and they have served their purpose very well. But if you want to move on from your Amazon Basics to something a little bit better, you will notice a difference in the sound. It will certainly help things. Be it your speaker cables or your RCA cables or your 5-pin DIN connectors or opticals that we mentioned earlier, or even your banana plugs that you're using to plug into your speakers. All of these things can make a difference. You could set yourself a maximum budget of £200, and that would cover absolutely all of it. You could get that all sorted for that, particularly if, as we were saying earlier, you're going for the shortest possible cables because they are less expensive. You tend to pay for them by the meter. Now then, that takes us to our final point, which is number 9, and this is one that you need to think of ideally before you start your system. So it's a kind of right back to the very basic one, and that's about finding electrical components and speakers, sources, amplifier speakers, that work well together. What you're looking for is synergy. So in the case of your amplifier and your speakers, check your speaker sensitivity, check your amp sensitivity, make sure that they're compatible and make sure they'll work well together. Also have a look online. There's loads of forums, there's lots of stuff on Google, and the new Gemini, the Google AI thing, is quite helpful here too for giving you information about what sources go well with what amps and what don't, so you know what to avoid. And that way you will have a synergistic system with a source that does well with an amp, or with an amp that does well with your speakers, and you'll have the nicer cables, the nicer connections, your room will be fine, and everything will be placed where it should be, and you will have a far better system than you have just now. And if you did even 6 or 7 of these, you would notice it. If you do all 9, you'll spend a couple of £100 and you will have a much better system, which is way less than buying a new source or buying a new amp or buying new speakers. Thanks for listening. Take care all. Bye-bye.